have just datamined a whole ton of new NPCs for the upcoming Draenei and Troll Heritage questlines in 10.2.7, which is happening soon. The Draenei have been living in essentially a crash site, which, while it made sense back in TBC, I mean, now they're so integrated, they need an actual settlement on Azeroth. We got a ton of settler Draenei, pack mules, Auchenai priests, Naaru datamined, which makes it seem like they may be building Auchindoun 2.0 on Azeroth, signaling their permanent mark on the world. Alongside this, there is potential for a broken playable race with datamined broken leader as well. On the side of the trolls though, we can discover the ton of Loa, Zandalari, the darkspear, signaling they may be getting a significant update as well, but it does seem like they may just bunch up all the trolls into one. So what is going on, and let's look at all this crazy datamine information for 10.2.7. While playing WoW on PC is great, you can also check in on your characters directly from your phone. With this video sponsor, Auchindoun, you can control your PC with your phone completely free, as it is available for Windows, iOS, and Android. Check out my link in the description, download the PC version and the phone app, and just connect it. The free version itself is amazing, as you can control your desktop, transfer files, but the real deal is the game version. It has custom keyboards for various games other than just WoW, and you can enjoy AFK gaming at any time, anywhere with game sound. Make sure to use my code Doron to get 7 days completely free, only for the first 200 people. They also got a smart lock to turn off your PC at any time, as well as hot sales with up to 40% off on pro game versions. Check out Auchindoun. So there is actually a ton of new info. As you may remember, in the 2024 roadmap, which my guess is going to be happening somewhere around May, we are going to get the Troll and the Draenei Heritage questline. Seeing that 10.2.5 was just released, the information is very scant at best, but luckily we have actually datamined a ton of new NPCs that were put into the build like a few days back, and I really do mean a ton, both Draenei and Troll ones, and based on the names, some implications, recent history, what is going on, we could sorta guess where all of this is going. Let's start off with the Draenei, but before we start listing the characters and trying to get the meaning, I just wanna say the trolls and the Draenei are really sticking out like sore thumbs when compared to other races. The Draenei literally crashed onto Azeroth and made a temporary makeshift camp and are living inside the ruins of a spaceship, which of course made a ton of sense back in TBC when the Legion was still a massive threat. There was the possibility they could repair it, depart at some point in future as soon as possible to go to another planet, and they were just constantly on the run since they left Argus like 20,000 years ago. However, so much has changed in the past few years. I mean, we stopped their main enemies, Sergeras, and killed Jaden. Their entire society changed, and now they are actually bound to Azeroth. Despite the fact that they haven't even been here for 2 decades, I would say they're now more bound to Azeroth than they were to Draenor, despite living there for a really long time. This means that much like the Gilneans and the Night Elves and the Forsaken getting their home back and a new identity, the Draenei should actually settle and create a real city, a living space, and we actually have some hints for something like that happening in the very near future. Second, in regards to the trolls, I mean, apart from the Zandalari that had a capital pretty much longer than any other race on Azeroth, the darkspear are in a really weird spot. I mean, they got the Echo Isles that are like this cool zone that is just stuck in time, but it's not really a city or a proper capital, and seeing that alongside the Orcs and the Tauren, they are the original Horde races, I could see that happening as well, especially when we combine this with the NPCs we had just datamined. So starting off with the Draenei, we got about 15-20 new NPCs and some really big implications to go alongside that. Most importantly, there are some hints that they may be building a new Auchindoun on Azeroth, which could literally be huge. Now, you might remember Auchindoun as this ruin back from TBC, because that is exactly what it was back on Outland, but you may also remember in Warlords of Draenor what this place looked like at its peak, and it really was amazing on alternate Draenor, so seeing something like this actually on Azeroth could be an amazing new feature. Super quick lore throwback, but Auchindoun is like a city, a mausoleum, a holy site for the Draenei. There was a Naaru, Dore, that the city was built around to study and ultimately regenerate him, and this was a city of the dead for the Draenei, a significant cultural site. They lost it, they never really had anything like that since, and from TBC and forth, I mean, they have been essentially living in a temporary camp. Now, of course, a new Auchindoun hasn't been confirmed on Azeroth Isles, but there are some hints pointing at something significant happening. First of all, we datamined a bunch of Auchenai soul priests, which was the order that preserved this place. And most importantly, we had also datamined the Naaru himself, Draenei, as well. That was like the center of this former holy site. Even more importantly, and I would say this is really the most important out of all these features, we had datamined a bunch of NPCs that appear to be Draenei travelers and something akin to pilgrims or settlers, as well as Pack Elec with a bunch of gear on them, which does signal that the Draenei are moving somewhere. We have datamined the robot Vigilance, which you may remember, which were these powerful constructs inhabited by the souls of the greatest Eredar warriors. However, most importantly, we had datamined a ton of significant Draenei characters, some alive, some dead, that you may remember from the books and the previous history. We got Hataru, that was killed by the Horde, Maladar, one of the 5 Draenei leaders that is instrumental with the Auchenai. We got Artificer Rommel, of course, we got Velen as the main guy, and a whole bunch of leaders from Draenei past that fell defending their people, so very iconic figures. Now, very interestingly as well, we have also datamined Chieftain Hatun of the Broken. You might remember the video from the past I did like a few months back. As I stated, there is very high evidence we could get the Broken as an actual customization, potentially new allied race. We already had a Manari and that questline that were technically Draenei enemies that are now playable, so there is literally nothing stopping, like lore-wise, from getting these fallen Draenei like the Broken from joining their people back. And the only thing that might actually be stopping them is the fact that they may be more difficult to implement, at least on the technical side. Now, of course, all this is based on just datamined NPCs, but I want to state a few very obvious things. I don't think we are getting a gigantic new city in 10.2.7. I think this is a setup for Midnight where it might actually happen. You all know Midnight isn't going to be just a void invasion, but also a light invasion at the same time. Now, with the Scarlets from 10.2.5, there are some hints that a fanatical light invasion may be happening, but also the good side of the light, as Chris Metzen said, we will fight the void together with the light in the final battle on Azeroth. Well, the Draenei are incredibly closely tied to the Naaru. The light itself, they literally shape them and their entire culture. That light crystal in Khazlagar seems like a site of either a past light invasion or maybe an injured Naaru that is transforming into a being of the void, and the Draenei definitely have experience with that. The void invasion is happening through the Sunwell, which is also Naaru based, so all in all, we're getting a ton of Naaru light hints on Azeroth in Midnight, and the Draenei are definitely going to be instrumental in that, because no one knows the Naaru better than the Draenei. I think much like the other races creating their own identity and settling on Azeroth, the Draenei are finally going to do that as well. They really have no other place in the universe to call home, seeing that Argus was destroyed, and I think they will finally build an actual city that signals their permanent settlement on this planet. And you may be thinking, I mean, how is that even going to happen? I mean, Azermist is super irrelevant, but it might not happen there, and even if it does, I think all of this can be tied into the light side of the story that is obviously going to be happening in the War Within and Midnight as well. And I think this new Heritage questline is going to just be the start, the foundation of this new storyline. Additionally, with the Draenei, we always have Yrel that is leading that fanatical light army on alternate Draenor that may be evil, so big things could be happening with that as well, maybe even another split in their society. Now, in terms of the trolls, we got a bit of a less clear picture of what is going to be happening, but luckily we created a whole bunch of NPCs where we can kind of guess where it might be going towards. As I stated, the trolls are also in a similar position, the darkspear at least. They recently lost their leader Vol'jin, they're definitely stuck in a time loop from Cataclysm, and they are in a really big need of a revamp and an actual place to call home, at least an updated place to call home. Now, unfortunately, based on the datamined hints, it does seem like they may be bunching all the trolls into one, so maybe getting the darkspear and the zandalari in one, as we had discovered the zandalari and the darkspear NPCs as well. However, we had datamined Rokan, the darkspear chieftain, which signals something big happening with the darkspear in particular. Interestingly enough, we had also discovered Kieran Bloodhoof and Bane as well, which might be some time memory or something similar, but you may remember back in Warcraft 3 how important Kieran was to the foundation of the Horde and the darkspear, so he may even be some type of like a Loa spirit. Alongside this, we had discovered a whole bunch of Loa, which is obviously an important thing in Troll Society, and it seems like Muezala and Bonsamdi are returning in a new story storyline. Mozala is called the Imprisoned Loa of Death, while Bonsandi is obviously just called the Loa of Death, and by this point, like, he is our ally. Unfortunately though, at this point in time, we have not heard a single thing about Vol'jin. We haven't datamined him, but seeing that we had an entire storyline back in Shadowlands where he was said to become a Loa, I think it is highly likely we might be seeing him in this Troll Heritage questline. As remember, all this is just super early datamine information at this point in time. Now, this is a little bit of a weird mix of characters like Witch Doctor, Zandalari, Darkspear Leader, Loa of Death, other Loas, so I mean this storyline can go in any direction. However, based on the logic that the Forsaken, Gilnean, and the Night Elven Heritage had to deal with loose ends and creating a new settlement, I could see the focus of this being on the Darkspear getting updates and more information on their home, like sort of updating everything that is currently stuck in Cataclysm. With the very early information, realistically, we have twice as much info about the Draenei than we do about the Trolls, at least at this point in time. Now, don't get your hopes like this is not going to be like an expansion's worth of content and we're getting like 3 gigantic cities. As remember, the recent Heritage questlines, while being interesting, have been quite short. Some of them have been like not even that good, and none of them brought a crazy revamp aside from the Night Elven one, which wasn't really Heritage questline. This was like a significant storyline of Dragonflight itself. However, what they all did was set up future storylines and foreshadow things that are going to happen. So I could totally see this laying the foundation for a new holy site for the Draenei and their permanent settlement on Azeroth, and also the Trolls getting their new home, and all of this happening either throughout the War Within and Midnight. Remember, Midnight is about the light and the void and the Trolls in Quota Last, and all these concepts involve the two races, the Draenei and the Trolls. Thank you for watching. Check out how the Scarlets are summoning the fanatical light on Azeroth by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on ancient Greek colonies in Spain by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time!